Hello, hello, and welcome. Today, I have got a today's a special day. I have a co-host all the way from the West Coast. So I'm the East Coast, he's the West Coast, Mr. Mike Flynn, and we have a special guest with us, Michael Nassirian. Gosh, I hope I got that right. How are you guys today?
Doing great.
Great. Nice to be here.
I am so happy that this all worked out. No one had tornadoes that got electricity turned off, no snowstorms. It is one of those perfect days. So to start off here, let's see, Mr. Michael, tell us a little bit about yourself in a snapshot. If you could take a picture, who are you?
I'm a technologist by heart, and I enjoy dealing and learning new technology. I've had a big career in high tech. Started with semiconductor back in the 80s, and for the past 23 years been in software, a variety of positions at Microsoft, and now I'm an entrepreneur and trying to learn as much as I can, because after all that year I learned that I know nothing.
So everything before entrepreneur is like foreign language to me. I'm like right on the spot when you said entrepreneur. I'm like, I got your back. But before that, it's gibberish.
To me too, to some extent.
So I have a question for you, Michael. You had the virus. We talk regularly. We're longtime friends. But I called one day and coughing like mad. You said, I've got the virus. And yet you came through it, but we've had interesting conversations about, are you immune or not immune? To talk about you're having it and the immunity issue.
Yes. To my surprise, with all the thinking that I've done, when this thing was in the news during the January, I've been really cautious, been trying to learn about it, trying to understand what is it and how to avoid it. But then was very surprised in the early stage of first week of March when I was exposed somehow, and I woke up with a massive body ache, and it percolates into flu-like symptoms. Couldn't breathe, had a lot of headache, sore throat, and went to a clinic. You understand that at that stage, and still at this stage to a certain degree, but back then everybody was confused. Everybody was trying to explore what is it, and my clinic, my doctor prescribed me as it's just a simple flu, and they gave me Tamiflu and okay, take Tylenol for body ache. Went home and the symptoms didn't go away. It was just like getting better and worse, and finally, the week following that, I went to a different clinic and they did the flu test. Immediately, they came back negative, and they went through my symptoms. They did a thorough study, and this is what I would recommend. If you go to a clinic, make sure that they go completely through your symptoms and do not overlook on some of the, even if it's small sore throat. I never had a fever, or my fever was minute enough that I could not feel it. But I had the rest of the symptoms. And they did the test for COVID, and a week later, the test came out positive. But during that period, it was massive body ache, sore throat, coughing, and then for 4 days, I had severe tightness of chest. I couldn't breathe. It was just like I'm in the middle of an ocean, swimming and coming up for air. And it was a very tough situation. It was unknown. The unknown factor of it was making it more scary. So I used every technique possible that I knew in my life, try to survive. I was even breathing from a straw, to increase the volume of air that goes to my lung.
Yeah.
And it worked, some of this, but to be honest, if it wasn't for my wife, I would be dead. She did an amazing job
Oh,
of
because she's a
pushing
woman
through.
taking care of you.
Oh yeah, I am I'm just so blessed because not only she didn't get it or she had a mild symptoms, but she was an angel. She was my saving angel, and
Love does heal, Michael. Love does heal.
But
yes,
now you've had it, so you're immune, right?
so I don't know. Nobody knows. We're trying very hard to look at the available tests, available technologies. There are antibody tests that probably 80% of them won't work, but the others that work are trying to give you a gauge of immunoglobulin G or M in your body, and the study showed that there are certain level of IgG and IgM in your body that your immune system develops after like 2 to 11 days after your symptoms, and then 12 to 17 days. So all of these gauges go up and down, and we're trying to understand: am I immune? What is my IgM level? What is my IgG level? And how long will it last? How long will it stay in your body? And this immunity is to what degree? Some said a few months, some said a year, some said 3 years.
Right.
Uh,
Well, it seems like it's an unknown entity. We don't know, this is a new thing. So how can we proclaim how we know our antibodies are going to work and if we are immune to it? That's kind of my thinking, my thought process of it. And in your opinion, I have to ask, do you think that this came from a lab in China, which will make that harder to predict, or maybe not?
well,
But if we don't determine the process of immunity, we really can't come out of this fully and go back to somewhat the way we were. We have to know, are we immune or not if you've had it?
these are all great questions, and if you go look at the it's $1 million question. But let me tell you this: the only way we can answer this properly is by collecting data, by making sure that we have enough data and analyze these data properly. So, am I immune or no? If I've been asking the CDC doctors and the scientists, and some said no, some said yes, you're probably immune, and some said that you're immune to one strain of this virus. And there are even studies from MIT that says there are 8 strains of this virus, anywhere extending from Wuhan in China to Italy to Iran in Middle East, and they're saying that I am exposed and beat maybe the virus that came from Wuhan, because that was the strain that was introduced in the Seattle area in the state of Washington, and the reason New York and Italy were hit, or Iran or Turkey were hit that hard and have that massive amount of death is because they were hit with several strains of this virus, and also the density of the population had a lot to do with it. To answer your other question about China, yes, all indications at this point today point to lab in China. It's not natural virus. Natural virus comes and you can beat it, but all indications, scientific indications, are that this was man-made. This was a virus.
Now, is there agreement about that, or is that your intelligent conclusion?
No, again, all the studies that are done from the science labs around the world in US, from the universities, they're all indicating, and to add to it is the reports that come from China, and the Chinese are trying very hard to bring the other aspects that it's not, but by killing their own scientists, and by some of these scientists eliminating from the earth, and by all the factors and the date and the data that comes from these labs, we know that the lab was in operation for years. Even U.S. scientists funded this lab, and in 2015, the lab changed its name. Scientists in France helped scientists in China to come up to par in these labs. So these are data. These are facts. We need to get more and more data to understand why. The current thinking is that this was done in a scientific technology study. This was not intended intentionally to come hurt people. So let's keep it like that. But then the thinking is that one of the scientists inadvertently got infected and went to the public, and obviously went to that market in China, and the rest is history.
So I have a question. What? Because I don't know this. What would be the purpose of manufacturing a virus in a lab like this?
Probably coming up with the technologies. Some said that the Chinese scientists wanted to prove that they are as good as U.S. scientists, and they can compete with the scientists around the world. There are a lot of thinking like that. But then again, we don't know the thought process of why you want to clone a ship named Dolly. This, in the name of science, we do a lot of weird things, and God knows I did a lot of weird things. But then when it comes to human life, that's where we call it quit, and we draw a line. They didn't. So the question is that's the main question. But the other main question that comes to mind is why didn't you expose this, however intentional or unintentional, virus into the public to prevent it from spreading to this? I say that China managed to kill about 200,000 people, infect more than 2 million people, damage the entire world economy without firing one bullet. And this is a massive overtaking of China, and China needs to answer this to the world economy. So,
but the way you're putting it creates the possibility of a dramatic different view of China from the rest of the world.
It should. If
What's
I'm
the
wrong,
implication of that?
If the news is wrong, prove it wrong, and somebody in the World Trade Organization, do you belong to World Trade Organization, or do Michael belong to the community? If I commit wrong things to community, they put me in places and in jail and in areas to reduce my harm to the community, and so is this. Chinese are a big member of World Trade Organization. They were introduced into that organization during Clinton administration in 1980s. So are they worthy of staying in that? If you are part of the World Trade Organization, why can't you operate as a global leader? And losing face or not, you made a mistake, and that mistake is going to kill blah blah. And why didn't you come out instead of looking proud and hide it, and then look at the consequences? Now somebody has to answer, and they're trying to step backward. But in the world of science, both Danny and Mike, we cannot clean all our traces, and these guys are not cleaning their traces. Look at the scientific numbers that come out of China, that around 30 to 40,000 people died, and there are studies ranging from the number of cell phones that were in operation in Wuhan and Hubei during up to December of last year, and now during March. That's a good number. That's a good indication. and then look at the number of infirmaries that were imported from Beijing and Shanghai into the Hubei and Wuhan, and how many people they can burn per day, per hour, and multiply that by the number of infirmaries, and then you can come up with a number. So the question is that.
So my question is, how do you hold something or somebody accountable? Kind of like you were saying, in my opinion, I'm going to think twice about how deep I personally am going to purchase or have my life evolve around China, because what are they putting in my clothing? What are they putting? I'm just saying, if they're going to not be held responsible, hold themselves responsible for a mistake that they made that caused this, pandemic over here, who's to say they're not going to do it again? We don't make the same mistakes twice, but it makes it easier to make a different mistake the same way. So how do Americans, where do we go from that? How do you protect yourself?
Can I jump in before he answers?
Yes.
It's clear that China is an unknown number of people, and the only people we're calling evil are a few people at the head of the government.
Yes.
Is it fair to excoriate everybody? There are Silicon Valleys in China. There are scientists who are trying to save the earth. As you know, Alibaba executives right now are trying to give us millions of pieces of equipment we need to fight this, because they want to build a good guy image along with the bad guy image. Mm-hmm. Michael?
Yeah. So, we're hitting on a lot of points that have been going on forever. I'm in the world of technology, and I can tell you clearly, back in 2000, we were forced to alter our softwares at Microsoft in order for the softwares to be marketable in China. And so on and so forth. Amazon, Apple, Facebook, they all have been arm wrestling, twisted to just, in order to sell in that large market, you have to do this. But when Chinese come to this market, they don't have to obey with the laws of the Western countries. So forever, we've been living with that. You saw the news from Huawei that in the motherboards that they were having, they had chips that would enable them to get into the back door. And in our world of technology, accessing the software from the back door is normal operation, because we have to upgrade we have to send upgrades to the device on regular basis, which is understandable. But then when Cisco does it, or when Intel does it, or when Microsoft or other Apples, they do that, they do it within the laws and the consent of the user. And when Chinese put this little chip that is a size of a hairpin, 2 mil by 2 mil, which nobody can see, and now they have access to everything you do. So the Wi-Fi and the router that is in your house, probably we can hack through that within a matter of half an hour. If I drive within 100 feet of your house, I can hack your Wi-Fi password, and it's easy to get access to your data. So we've known that for years. Now with this, and with the way that this is, obviously, a lot of people would think twice before buying that antibody test from China. Now, why a country like US would not have the capability to develop all their essentials from here, from this country? We don't even have a mask. We don't have a test kit. We don't have, our raw component of penicillin come from China. So we're practically got caught with our pants down. And if we don't learn from this pandemic then all that life that have been lost with no resolve. So we need to learn. You just said it. Tomorrow, when I want to invest, I'm going to be a little wiser and look at not only the economics of the situation, but as the scalability of it,
Yeah.
and how well I can manage my business going forward. Both of
Hey,
you are right.
I need to, I was going to say, so as you know, there are several companies in China that are creating the antibody test. And two of them that I know of, the FDA is about to approve their test approaches. So if they turn out to provide enough tests to satisfy all the people in this country, doesn't that deserve some sort of good word?
Well, you just said it, that the people in China are different than the government of China. Right now, we're using Zoom. Let me give you that example. We're using the Zoom, and the Zoom technical directors, the leadership, and all the coding is happening in China. Now, today, there is a lot of APIs underneath that they can just say, we're recording this conversation for the sake of making it better. And now, if tomorrow government of China comes into Zoom and say, "Hey, I need to have access to that," you think they're going to refuse that? So that Zoom is one example. And if the world leaders like UK are using Zoom as their conference to go, and then if Chinese want access to those private meetings, it's very easy for them to acquire. US cannot. US have laws against that, right? You saw FBI couldn't even get the access to that cell phone from Apple. So to answer your question, yes, it's just very difficult to compare China to US.
Yes, and I feel that, yes, we're talking about the Chinese government here, not the people, but the Chinese government has such a hold and control over the people. It's hard to separate the two.
Yes. So the tests that are coming from China, I heard, I'm working with a couple of companies, actually, with 6 companies, but 2 of them are from China. And the rumor was that one of the factory owners was saying that there are indications that the government of China are encouraging us not to sell to US and sell to Europe and other countries. So imagine if Chinese look at this as a savior for US, do you think they would let us have access to 2 million tests a day? No, I think the answer is no. But I'd rather go to Japanese or go to Korean or go to Germans and pay a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
But come up with a lot more accuracy. Right now, I'm working with this company in Germany, and we don't know where it goes, but their prices is really high. They're at least 5-fold higher than Chinese. But I know I'm dealing with the right business partner.
So I think there's going to be a universal, global, or at least maybe American, or I hope so, shift is, I always believe you put your money where your mouth is. You are who your 5 closest people are. If you know a business is immoral and you go and spend your money there, well, you are just as immoral. I don't believe that there's that much disconnect. So sometimes you do have to pay a little bit more, but you are, shuffling out the tyranny, you're shuffling out the bad moral behavior of companies. And if we all do this as a mass, we learn from this and we do it as a mass, we can, as a huge population, make a shift in the economy and shift in the way business is.
At all point in my businesses and in my life, I've been using common sense and logic. And common sense in here, if you just put the facts together, you come up with your common sense. Don't listen to this and that. News can give you guidelines. News can give you their view from different angles. Both of you are reporters. Both of you are very, very seasoned reporters. And you know that you can just show one angle and another angle. But as humans, we owe it to ourselves to grab all these news and use our common sense and decide for ourselves. Do we want to go with China? Do we want to go with Korea? Do we want to go with Europeans, or we want to bring it here in home?
Mm-hmm.
I believe that we have capability to do everything here in home.
I want to make sure that we ask him before you close. So when we come out of this, what does it look like?
Well, the norm that we have right now is going to be the reality. I'm looking at us and having this meeting virtually. So virtual is the new physical. And if the people are trying to say that, okay, right after this 2 months of quarantine, we're going to hit the market, we're going to pack that theater, we're going to pack that restaurant, they're wrong. The norm is the reality now, and it's not going to go back to what we were, what we had. And in order for us to go back to a certain level of normalcy, a lot of things should happen, and these things have to happen without any form of numeracy. But at this point, we need to develop kinds of tests that are scalable. We need to make sure that these tests are giving a result in minutes rather than days. We need to be able to create an infrastructure for recording these results. We need to be able to store these results and have access to it. And we're way, way away from these that I'm talking about. And then once we do this, and once we get into the community, and once we ease back into our community, we're still going to do the social distancing to a certain degree, because it's not one size fits all. We're looking at a bunch of businesses that are going to be affected, and not all of them are going to have the same level of interest. Restaurants, cafe, bar, nightclubs, gym are going to have a different structure of interaction with large number of people. So is hotel, theaters, cinemas, art galleries, even the daycares or the private schools or the public schools, cruise lines, airline industries. They're all going to be affected. And the questions are, if tomorrow even government come up with the guideline, and then the cities and state come up with their own guideline, and then the businesses say, hey, government did this, let's open it. My question to some of my business partners and restaurant owners or club owner is, do you want that 5, 6, 10 people come to your club and get infected, get exposed, and maybe one of them die and sue you? Aside from the financial problem that you're going to have, your name brand and your reputation is going to be affected. So it's up to you to bring in your guidelines. Would you want to jump in the same pool as others, not knowing if they're healthy?
I didn't really like to jump in the same pool with strangers to begin with.
And go to the restaurant.
So what would you say in closing? What is your biggest tip to having people just start living, not living out of fear, but from you? What would you give them? What can they walk away with?
At this point, I think we need to create some sort of a common ground. And that is by creating a basis of who is immune, who is not, who has it, who doesn't. And by separating that, we're going to create a community, and we're going to build our immune system, our healthcare system for future. These pandemics are going to be there, coming, not in this volume, but it's going to happen. So let's build our health system. Let's bring in some sort of a robust antibody test. or a level of test that says that Danny, Mike, and Michael are having immunity, and these guys are going to. Number two important thing is the contact tracing. We need to create this whether we have pandemic or no. We need to know if something happened, we immediately put an umbrella over the infected area, rather than waiting for thousands of people to get infected and they infect others. And then we need to have databases and technology around it to help us. Mike knows my thinking of human is very low. So we need to bring artificial intelligence.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so I know we're closing up here, but you just gave me a flood of more questions I want to ask. So I'm going to zip my mouth because I will not get off because I'm like on fire. My seat, I'm like Anson in my pants over here. But we're going to leave it with that because I left you with the last statement. So I want to say cheers, right? Cheers to you, Michael.
Cheers.
Thank you for coming on and joining. And Mike Flynn, thank you for co-hosting and coordinating this with me. This was great knowledge. And I am so blessed to have you guys in my life now. And thank you.
I love the East-West connection.
Fantastic talking with you guys.
Yes, thank you. We'll see you later.
All right. Bye-bye.